Hello, guys. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen. I can see your
All
screen.
right,
So, yeah.
perfect. Thanks for the confirmation. So, welcome to the Zero to Lab class. This is a class for CCI lab preparation and pathway to the CCI basically. So, in this particular course, we actually will go every week, going technology by technology. So, we will actually cover different parts of the CCI curriculum step by step because it's a big curriculum and there are many things that we'll need to cover, and we'll need to cover it in depth to very detail, to much detail. And for that, what we do is that we go through the particular concept, its fundamental theory, and then we follow it up with the lab configuration. So immediately, whatever we learn, we implement it so that it becomes more understanding and it becomes clearer how exactly the things are working, and you actually remember it more because you just did it with the practical as well. And every week we do the same thing. And sometimes, of course, some topics are big, so we go multiple weeks through those topics. So you become quite comfortable in that technology. Right. So the idea is that to give ourselves enough space, enough time to understand everything step by step, doing the practicals as well, and then making sure that we become comfortable in that technology or in that topic before moving to the next step or to the next part, right? So what happened is that when we were creating this program, Christian and I both were thinking, okay, what exactly is missing currently in these other programs which are out there. And mostly what we saw for CCIE is there were these boot camps kind of programs where you go through all the content of CCIE in 5 days or 7 days, or maximum I saw like there are like 10 days boot camp, but that was it. So if you go through all the content or all the particular topics from a CCIE curriculum in 1 week, and you have to cover everything, including switching topics, routing topics. Then there are L3 VPN topics. Then there are services, multicast, QoS, IPv6, uh, and NET and NTP, SNMP. All these things are there. Then you have specific security topics from ACLs to the IPsec tunnels, and then comes the topics which I added later, like in this new version with the software-defined networking, SD-WAN, SDA. Then comes the programmability. You need to understand Python. The basics of Python should be clear. You need to know the difference between netconf and resconf, these transport protocols. And you also need to know EEM, embedded event management, and how do you integrate EEM with the Python, and how do you also use onbox Python on a router, where you install it into a container within the router into a Linux system. So there is simply so much content in CCIE that you simply cannot cover everything in 5 days. Or if you do, it's not going to be beneficial for anyone. First of all, as a student, you will not be able to practice anything because the only time the instructor would have is to go through the things on his own, just to show you everything on the presentation, and you will not get any breathing space to do anything yourself or to ask any questions, because to be able to ask questions, you need to have some time to think, right? And you're going so fast, it doesn't make any sense. So that's when we thought, okay, we need to create a program which is quite opposite of these boot camps, where we actually go from zero uh, all the way to the required level of expertise that you need for CCI. And that's where the Zero to Lab program was created. So I'm definitely going to show you the exact structure that we are going to go through. But let's start, first of all, with exactly the structure of the exam and how are we going to approach it, right? So first thing, the exam that we are going to cover in Zero to Lab program is the CCI Enterprise Infrastructure exam, right? So then this used to be called CCI Routing and Switching exam before, and then they changed the name to Enterprise Infrastructure. And what they do is that in this particular exam, earlier you had the structure of 8 hours total lab time. But when you go to take the exam, the first 2 hours used to be troubleshooting, where you had a different topology and you had 10 tickets, basically 10 questions, where you need to fix the issues and some tickets may be interdependent to each other as well. And you need to fix at least 8 tickets to be able to pass the exam. But to guarantee that you will pass, you should do at least 9 out of 10 tickets properly, or fix them, because they are weighted also. They have different weight. They used to have different weight before. So this was 2 hours troubleshooting, and then you used to have the configuration, which was the next 6 hours. So that was a different topology. So they used to have two different topologies, and two different types of configuration. Troubleshooting, where everything is pre-configured but deliberately misconfigured, and you need to fix it. And second part was, of course, the configuration. But in the new version, in the enterprise infrastructure setup that they have introduced quite a while ago, now the exam is divided into two parts as well. Uh, and you will see that in the lab part, you also have the design and the deploying part. But here, when I'm saying this is divided into two parts, I mean there's a qualification exam, which has also significantly changed. And then, of course, there is a lab exam. So qualification exam now is the NCORE exam, which also works as a core exam for CCNP, right? So this is another good thing. Earlier, what used to happen, if you are doing your CCNP, you had to do 3 certifications: route, switch, and T-shoot. And once you become CCNP certified, let's say you want to move on to CCIE, you had a dedicated qual exam, a written exam only for CCIE. They used to call it CCIE qualification exam or CCIE qual exam. And you pass that exam, and then only you will be able to book the CCIE lab, right? But now, if you are preparing for CCNP, and one of the certification for CCNP is NCORE, which is the Enterprise Core exam, and if you pass that exam, of course, one of the requirement to become CCNP certified is fulfilled. But also, now you are eligible to book the CCIE lab as well. And this NCORE actually is this encore actually makes you eligible not only for CCI enterprise infrastructure, but also for CCI wireless exam. So if you are interested more in wireless and want to go for CCI wireless later as well, this exam will get you covered for next 3 years. So it's actually validity is 3 years. So within next 3 years, you can book CCI enterprise infrastructure or the wireless exam, the one that you want to do, any one of these with the same certification and core, right? So you don't need to do any dedicated qualification exam. So no need to pay extra money also, because there was, of course, like a 400 to $500 exam that CCI qual exam used to be. So that's scrapped, and now you have only this one. And of course, CCNP is also restructured. So after this NCORE, the core certification, you have one of the concentration exam. And if you pass that, like NRC or SD1 specific exam, then you become CCNP certified as well. Although officially you don't have any prerequisite for CCI. So if you have never done CCNA also, and you don't plan to do CCNP certification, and you just did the NCORE exam to be able to qualify to book the lab, that is perfectly all right. CCI, you can actually attempt the CCI exam by just having the NCORE exam under your belly, right? And then, of course, comes the lab exam. So, lab exam, they started with the CCI Enterprise Infrastructure version 1.0, but later they actually modified it few things. And currently, the version that they are using is CCI Enterprise Infrastructure version 1.1, right? So, what exactly do we have in the lab exam? How is it structured now? Like before, it used to be 2 hours troubleshooting and 6 hours of configuration, two different topologies. Now, what is the structure? So now you'll see that it is still an 8 hours hands-on based exam. So the time hasn't changed. It is the same. Uh, just a second. Just a second. Sorry about that. So it's still 8 hours exam, and still it is divided into two parts. But now these parts are actually quite different. So instead of concentrating on dedicated troubleshooting part like they used to have earlier, now they have a design part, which is 3 hours, the first 3 hours instead of 2 hours. And this is interesting. Design part actually has multiple choice questions, MCQs, drag and drops, and they might have some kind of email exchange screenshots between like a IT manager and an employee, or some non-IT employee, and there is this troubleshooting that they are trying to do together. But there is no configuration, right? So basically, you don't need to click on the devices and configure them in this part. This part is more like CCNP written exam, like Encore exam, where you will have to observe the information they are giving you, and then based on that, after analyzing that information, you need to answer few questions, right? So this actually is more observational skills and more fundamental knowledge of the technology. So for that's why I always say for the design part, you don't need anything specific. What you need is the fundamental knowledge of the technology, that how exactly things supposed to work, and exactly versus how actually they are working. For example, if you know exactly what you need for an OSPF membership to come up, or if you know exactly how you actually propagate the multicast traffic from one location to another location, or you know what you need between two P routers for MPLS L3 VPN. If you know the steps, or if you know the fundamental knowledge, then if they are giving you an issue with some output, you will be able to see what is missing, or what is deliberately misconfigured, or what exactly needs to be done. Like two routers, OSPF membership is not coming up, and they are showing you the running configuration or OSPF configuration output from both routers. You will be able to quickly see if there is an MTU mismatch that is required, or if there is a timer mismatch that is also needed in OSPF, has to be same. If there is an area mismatch, or if there is a subnet mask mismatch, is there any authentication configured, is password mismatch is there. So you can see all these things and decide whether everything is okay or not, whatever things that we need to match in OSPF to become neighbor, just to give you an example. Or in case of MPLS-L3 VPN, are we using loopbacks for the VPN before neighborship? Are we using a /32 loopback? That is a requirement. So is that specific or not? So all these things you will be able to check if you have the fundamental knowledge clear. That's why in our course, you will see the structure that the first part will concentrate on single protocol labs, means we are going to go through the topics step by step, and every single topic that we are going to go through, we are going to understand it in CCI level detail, so that we become more and more comfortable with the information that we need to know. And that will actually help you with the design part, of course. And of course, I'll also give you some questions to practice by the time we come to the end of this class, because design part is something that this whole class, the whole 52 weeks that we have, is going to prepare you for the design part. And at the end, of course, the questions that I'll give you just to practice, they will solidify your understanding then, and also will tell you that how exactly Cisco asks questions into the design part, right? So this is something we'll get it covered directly and indirectly both, so you don't need to worry about this part. And then comes the bigger part, the next 5 hours, which is the deploy, operate, and optimize, DOO, right? So this is the 5 hours part, and this is the configuration part. This is where you will have a topology, and you will have to start configuring different technologies or topics step by step on this topology. So you'll see that in this part, you have three major sections. First part, I would call it the core technologies. Simply, we can just call it like original routing and switching CCI exam. Whatever the topics we had, you still have it now, but they are into the first section. They are all actually crammed into the first section. And when I say that all the topics that you used to have in the original CCI exam, means most of the topics from the switching, routing, like you will have VLANs and trunking, Ether channel, uh, or spanning tree protocol, right? All these things, and in the switching part, and then the routing part, you have of course EIGRP, OSPF, BGP, IPv6 routing. All these routing configuration will be there, and then you will have special configuration like multicast, QoS, VPN technologies, where you have the MPLS and DMVPN. security, IPsec tunnels, access control list, and unicast reverse path forwarding or URPF. All these things or all these IP services also like NET, NTP, DHCP, DNS, IPSLA, policy-based routing. All these things are actually into the first section. So you would see that first section is actually the biggest section of the exam, and it will take you the most time in configuring the first section. Although it is familiar things or the things which are not new as far as the technology is concerned. OSPF is very age old, right? Or DMVPN is not fairly new, but this is going to take the most of the time because it is the biggest part of the exam, right? And second section in the exam would be the software defined network. So software defined networking is a concept where you actually decouple the management plane, control plane, and data plane of a device. So every device can actually forward the traffic, which we call data plane. But to be able to forward the traffic, it needs to have some routing or switching policies configured. It needs to have the routing table populated or switching table, which we call MAC address table populated. And we use protocols for exchanging these routes or exchanging these MAC address information, right? And that is called the control plane, controlling how exactly the traffic will be forwarded. So that is also done on the device. And then, of course, as an administrator, you want to configure the device. So you have to gain access to the GUI or CLI of the device, that is called the management plane of the device, using secure shell or using a web browser. We connect to that, right? So when you decouple all of these things and you keep so many different distance devices to just for the data plane, but the control plane and the management plane means routing and switching policies or managing the device, you actually take it out from individual devices and you place them into a central device, which we call a controller. When you do that, that is called software defined networking, decoupling this management, control, and data plane, right? So you will see that this is a new topic or newer topic compared to the routing and switching part or the core technology that we are going to go through. But it's mostly GUI. You will see that once you understand the logic, how exactly it works, and of course, there are two branches here. One is if you implement software-defined networking in a campus environment, in a LAN environment, it is called SDA or software-defined access. And the controller we use for that is called Cisco DNS Center or Cisco DNAC, right? On the other hand, when you implement the same logic of decoupling this control plane, management plane, and data plane on the WAN side, then this is called SD-WAN, right? Software defined WAN. And then the controllers are actually called vSmarts. And then the management controller is called the vManage. And then there is a licensing and authentication orchestrator, which is called vBond. So we have three different devices, types of devices, which act as the controllers, right? So you will see that this is although a newer topic, but in the exam, it is going to take less time to configure this part, because of course when we are thinking about exam, that means you already know the logic of these things, how exactly they work, and then you just need to know that where exactly to click and what to configure on the GUI. It always becomes easier when it is the GUI is involved, because although yes, you need to learn the logic, but once you learn it and then you know, okay, I need to create some policies, so I need to go on the right hand side menu, policies, and then I go to the centralized control policy, and then I start creating the policy, and then there are different types of rules that I need to add. So you know the steps that you need to remember. Just to give you an example, that's what you will need here. So we'll have some labs for this as well, and we'll practice these things, so it will become easier. So believe me, the most time it will take for you in the exam is the core technologies, routing switching technology. That is going to take up a lot of your time, and that's why you need more practice to finish that part as soon as possible, because overall you only have 5 hours to complete this, right, in the exam. And the last part is the programmability. So programmability is also new, but this is the smallest part of the exam, and this is the most interesting part of the exam. So since this is not an automation CCIE, right? They have a dedicated CCIE for automation as well, but they just want to make sure that you have the basic knowledge of some programmability concepts. So they don't expect you to be expert in Python language or know in-depth configuration infrastructure as code technologies like Terraform or Ansible or Puppet or Chef or RESTconf or NetConf, but you should be able to understand the differences and how exactly you use them and use them also on some basic level. So we are going to cover the basics of Python here. And then, of course, we are going to see how we can use Python to interact with the router and to change configurations on the router or control the configuration, delete the configuration, retrieve the configuration from the router. So what kind of data format is used for that? And what are the different data formats? Like we have XML, JSON, or YAML. These are all different data formats that can be used between the our device and router or switch that where we are sending the instructions. And then, of course, what kind of instructions are we sending? What language do we understand between the device and the router or switch? So that is called the Yang data models. We'll see, which is the common language, programmability language between devices, so that you can tell them what you exactly want to do in the language they understand. And how do you send these instructions? So there are transport protocols like netconf and RESTconf. These protocols are used to take your Yang data model instructions from your device to the routers and switches in the language or the format that you have decided to use, XML, JSON, or YAML. What format do you want to use? So we are going to see all these examples. Of course, we are going to automate these things with Python and embedded event management, which is the in-house scripting language on the Cisco router. And we'll see that how powerful it becomes when we combine EM and Python and use them together to send these API calls or application programming interface calls. Right? So you'll see that in the 5 hour configuration part, it seems like the time will not be enough, right? Because there are so many things you need to configure. There are so many different topics you need to cover, especially in the core technologies. There are many topics. So it seems like that 5 hours might not be enough for this, right? But what happens is that the devices will be partially pre-configured. So you don't need to actually configure everything from the scratch. But for example, there is a headquarter or there's a data center, and OSPF is supposed to be configured between all devices in the data center, and it is configured already, but it is not working between some devices. So you just need to fix the configuration or add the things which is missing, and you just need to continue doing that, right? So that way you will see that it will not take much time to configure most of the technologies, because some configuration is already going to be there. But still, having said that, since you will need to add this configuration, you will need to configure the devices as per the instructions. 5 hours is not going to be enough if you don't practice it enough for to get that pace there, right? So that's why we have a particular structure here in this course. So remember, there are two things you need for passing the exam. You need the accuracy and the speed, right? Accuracy comes first. So that's why whenever we start the course, I tell the students that don't worry about the speed right now. Concentrate on the accuracy part. Means you have to make sure that you understand the technology, you understand it properly, and all the labs that I'm sending you week by week, you make sure that you understand every single point into the lab, because I'll also send you the solution file, so you can always ask me if you have any confusion. And of course, when we'll go to the multi-protocol lab, there you will see also that it's the same lab, and there are the building upon the configuration. They configure layer 2 first. On the top of that, they configure layer 3. Then on the top of that, they configure the BGP and the VPN technologies, and then security, and then services like DHCP and DNS. So they build upon everything step by step. So you have to make sure that you understand everything properly first. Every single requirement in the mock lab that we are going to do, you have to make sure that you understand why they are asking it, what exactly they are asking, and also how exactly the solution is working on that, right? If accuracy part is covered, like if you understand the lab inside out properly, then the speed will come later. You don't need to worry about that. You just need to practice it enough time, not to cram anything. or not to remember anything by heart for the exam. It just you actually practice the labs again and again so that you subconsciously you start preparing yourself to respond quickly. You read the question and your mind is or your brain is preparing it so much that it understand it faster and it responds with the configuration faster. That is the pacing part. That is the configuration part that will come with the continuous or repeated practice at the end, right? So you don't need to worry about that part right. As a matter of fact, when I was doing my CCIE routing and switching preparation, uh, I knew that in the exam I need to supposed to finish this configuration in 6 hours, right? Because at that time there was 2 hours troubleshooting, and then 6 hours of configuration. So in the configuration part, I got a mock lab. Somebody gave me the mock lab. They said, okay, you have to do this mock lab. It is the same structure as CCIE exam. Means you will actually have to take it would take the same time for you to solve or fix this lab as much you would get into the CCIE exam, right? So what happened in that time, I was pretty comfortable with technologies. I was practicing individual technologies quite a lot. I knew MPLS or L3VPN or BGP configuration or quality of service or OSPF or EIGRP. I was pretty comfortable with these things. So I was very confident that yes, I will be able to do it quite easily, right? And then when I started doing the lab the first time, I was supposed to finish it in 6 hours. And how much time did it take for me to complete that lab? It took me 3 days. You won't believe it. 3 days means I sat down for 8 hours the first day, and there were some parts where I got stuck. And of course, I did not have the habit of reading the question fast enough, understanding the topology fast enough, understanding how the traffic is supposed to go from one point to another point, and then actually seeing that exactly what they're asking, what is currently happening, and what exactly they are asking, trying to understand the way Cisco asks questions in the exam. So that was a real eye opener because it's not that I did not know the technologies, but the way Cisco structures everything, it doesn't become very easy to, or it doesn't become very easy to understand it and do it within 6 hours, right? The first time you do it, but that's the point. You are not supposed to do it in 5 hours or 6 hours the first time you are configuring the lab. You need to understand the lab first. You need to understand how exactly Cisco asks questions and how should you respond to them and understand the specifics of the lab, right? And for the CCI, exactly now what Cisco does, Cisco doesn't hide the topology, right? Cisco reveals the topology they're using in the exam. And the reason is it's not a design exam, although there's a design part here, a small part, but it's not CCDE, right? Cisco certified design expert. So they don't expect you to understand the structure or the design of the network very fast within the lab. So they reveal it beforehand. And as a matter of fact, you will see it will look something like this. Uh, like this one you can see here. We have headquarter where we have some routers and switches and some nodes, and then we have data center. In the data center we also have some routers and switches, and then we have internet connection, and then we have another service provider, this one, the yellow color background you see, global SP1, which connects to different branches, and these branches have reachability to the data center because of the DMVPN tunnel, dynamic multi-point VPN tunnel. So you can see that you need to build upon the configuration in these kind of topologies. You will have to configure switching first. After switching, you will have to configure routing. And you can see in the routing here, we have OSPF for IPv4, EIGRP for IPv6. In data center also, we have IPv4. And over the DMVPN tunnel, we are using EIGRP for IPv4. Then we have BGP between the service provider and our DC and the headquarter. And similarly between the service provider and the spoke routers in our branches. So you will see that the routing and the BGP configuration, and then there are services also, like you can see DHCP server, and there will be some fast stop redundancy configuration. So the topology that Cisco reveals, we actually create something similar so that when we are practicing the multi-protocol lab, we are getting similar experience as we would get into a CCIE exam, right? But before we reach to this point, this is the multi-protocol lab, right? We are configuring every technology into the same lab. Instead, we will start with the single protocol labs so that we can concentrate in the first part of this program. We can concentrate on one topic at a time, and we make sure that we understand it properly, and then we follow it with the lab. So you will see the structure, that how exactly we are going to do that. So let's talk about that. What is exactly this course structure, and what can you expect from this course for the CCI? So this course is going to be once per week. So we are going to make sure that we take the topic of the week, we give it enough time, we understand it with the lab, and then I give you the whole week to make sure that you practice it on your own and become quite comfortable. If you have any questions, you ask them and make sure that you are good with that before we move on to the second part of the topic next week, or maybe the next topic, depending on how big the topic is. Like BGP can take more than one session. It is actually going to be 6 sessions. For 1.5 months, we'll keep on going through BGP. So some topics are bigger, some are smaller, might take only one session, like CDP or LDP. A single session is more than enough. But yes, we will have one session per week where we'll concentrate on some part of the configuration, some part of the curriculum that we have for CCI, the different topics. And the class duration is 2 hours every session. Although I always say this in my classes that it is more topic driven class than the comparing to other classes which are like time driven. So it's not a time driven class, it's not strictly 2 hours. It depends on the topic in the hand that particular week, right? Some topics actually need more than 2 hours of explanation and configuration, so we might go slightly overboard also over than 2 hours. Sometimes the topics are not so big, so we might end up before 2 hours as well. It depends on the topic of that week, right? So we make sure that we cover everything we need to cover. We do the lab, and then we'll see how much time it takes. So it doesn't matter exactly how much time is there. It's just a general uh, general structure that we have roughly 2 hours every session. That's why you'll see that when I say 1 hour, it will be the topic discussion with theory, and 1 hour lab. It's also just for reference, right? Again, some topics we might have to go more than 1 hour for the theory, and the lab will not take so much time. Some other topics we might have to we might have little bit theory, but the lab will take more time, or in some both things will take more time. So that's where we might go overboard over than 2 hours, and in some other cases both might take less than 1 hour. So overall we will be done well within 1.5 hours or something like this. So it depends on the topic, but the idea is we'll start one topic and we'll actually talk about some things. Let's say today is a specific OSPF day where we are going to talk about OSPF authentication, summarization, and OSPF route filtering. So we'll talk about these topics and maybe virtual link as well. And then after that discussion, after telling you exactly how these technologies work, what is the configuration you need to do, what things you need to consider, we will actually follow it with the lab, right? So in the lab, we will have a topology, and we will have some instructions just like exam, and then there will be the configuration in the exam style. The only difference is in the exam you get everything on the same topology, and you build upon one thing over the other, which is called multi-protocol lab, which we are going to do at the second part of the course. In the first part we have individual labs for individual topics. So just to give you an example, let's say just to give you an example, we have a lab for MPLS practice. So let's say we are talking about MPLS, multi-protocol level switching, and I'm telling you that you need to have a service provider network like one, router two, router four. This is service provider, which will be running some kind of IGP, interior gateway protocol, and LDP. And you also need MP, IBGP, multi-protocol IBGP between the edge routers or PE routers, router one to router four. And then you provide services to the customer. So here router 6 and router 7 is one branch of the customer connecting to one side, and router 5 and router 8 here is another branch of the customer connecting to the P router, router 4, just to give you an example. And then how do we make sure that we exchange these routes between these two different branches of the customer, because we are providing these VPN services, right, to exchange the routes between different branches. So we use the virtual routing and forwarding toward the customer, and then we use MPLS configuration in the backbone, that means in the service provider network, and then we exchange these routes between these different devices. So we will actually go through different instructions, just like in the exam. So you will see there will be a certain lab where I'll tell you what needs to be done, instructions, and then I will configure these things live in the Zoom session. So of course, I will go through the logic of MPLS and I'll tell you exactly how MPLS is supposed to work in the theory part. But then when the lab comes, I'm not going to be configuring the lab quietly. I will be explaining every single point and exactly why we are doing that and the way we are configuring it, right? So you immediately apply the knowledge that you learn into the theory part in the first part of the Zoom session, and of course, after this lab will be after the class is done. This lab will be sent to you as well, so that you can practice it during the week and understand exactly how things are working. And if you have any questions, you can ask them as well. So when I send you the lab, you will see that the same lab along with the solution file will be sent to you guys by the email. So you will see that there will be a solution file as well. So for example, this same multi-protocol lab that we went through, just an example, I will explain you what you need to do there and how exactly that will be solved, right? So I think, just a second, I think I did not open that solution file. Excuse me. Yeah, just to give you an example like this, like whatever the instruction I was telling you that configure MPLS in this way or that way between service provider and the customer, the configuration solution will be here into the solution file, so that you can always refer to it whenever you get stuck. And one thing you need to remember from the next week when we start this step-by-step procedure, always have the mindset of learning. So, of course, when you come to the Zoom session and you are listening to me and you are trying to understand the topic and you are getting into the in depth of the configuration and the logic details, that time you are naturally in the learning state because you want to learn and you want to understand, you want to bridge the gaps that you have about certain topics. But then when I send the labs to you to configure during the week, don't try to test yourself by saying, okay, let me see how much do I remember from the class. Let me try to configure it without looking into the solution. Oh, why did I get stuck here? Why don't I remember this part? Why is it not working? And you get disheartened or you feel demotivated. Don't do that to yourself. Make sure that you still have the learning mindset. So when you start doing the lab on your own and you get stuck somewhere, you have to be happy. You have to say, okay, I don't know this, but that's the part it's the part of the learning. I don't know this, so now I will check the solution file and now I will know this. So next time if I do it again, I'm not going to get stuck at this particular point, and I'm learning new things right now that I need to learn for passing the CCI exam. So every time you have to have the mindset of learning, even when you're doing the lab on your own during the week. And that's why I send the solution file. So feel free to check the solution file as many times as you want to check it. Don't hesitate in that part. And also, if you don't understand something in the solution file, you can watch the recordings again. So you will see that there will be recordings of these sessions. Although you might not see the recording from this class, it will be from one of the previous zero to lab classes. And the reason is because we have so many CCI classes going on every time. So and the content is same, so we don't keep multiple recordings. It's just wastage of bandwidth because it's all the same content that we cover and the same labs and same topics we cover. So you might see the recording from one of the previous classes, but the content will be same. The labs that we cover is going to be same. The explanation will also be same, so you will get the same information from these recordings as well. But yes, you can always go back to recording to see and confirm what you learn. And if you don't understand something in the lab or in the recording also, you can send me a question. And how do you contact me for support? You can ask the questions on the Facebook group. So we have a very good Facebook group community where we have all these students and you can ask questions there. The benefit of asking questions on the Facebook group, is first. Other people will also see your question, so they might chip in, they might answer before even I answer, or even they are also having the same issue, and when I answer there, they also benefit from your question. So it's a good community. It's always recommended to ask questions there. But there's another option also. While you are watching the recordings from the week, and while watching recording, you remember something. Oh, I wanted to ask this question. You can pause the recording, and immediately below the recording, there is a comment section where you can type your question and press enter. And that question also comes directly to me. And then you can go back and resume your video watching, so that you know that the question is already asked, and then I'm continuing, and soon I'll get the answer from Arpit directly, right? So that's another way. And of course, the third and the last way, the is via email. You can send me an email and ask me the questions, but that is the least recommended way, because generally we use email only for sending labs and instructions and OV files and all these things. So your reply might be delayed when you send something on the email. It's not properly checked every time or not screened for specific questions from the students, right? But yeah, there are many different ways you can contact me and get the answer that you need for clarity on that particular, or clarification on that particular topic or part of the topic, right? So you can ask me any questions. You can refer to the solution file,
A bit.
and if the solution, yeah, hello.
Is there a way you can create more like a WhatsApp channel group, or that would be too much of a ask?
WhatsApp will be a slightly difficult because of the time difference also. What we can do is, I can send you my WhatsApp information, and you can ask questions there, or you can request something there. But it might not be immediate, like because of the time difference and other things.
Yes, yes,
The answer
yeah,
might be slightly late. So,
yeah, I
so
understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely that's not a problem. I can send you the detail.
Okay,
Um,
sounds good.
Perfect, no problem. All right, just a second. So you can see that this course structure is going to make sure that every week, step by step, we go through all the requirement of the CCI blueprint or CCI curriculum, and we make sure that we give ourselves enough time to become comfortable with the technology, not only with the theory part, but also enough hands-on and configuration, right? So you can see that's why this program is very helpful, because the main thing which is missing in a lot of other programs is the practice part, right? The configuration. Because you try to learn, like if you go to the boot camps, you get so much information bombarded, and then you don't have enough time to do hands-on practice or the configuration on that part, right? Um, And second thing is that this program addresses the issue with a certain plan that we use here. For example, as I was mentioning earlier already, that all the single protocols labs configured and explained by me, and followed by the configuration by you. So basically what happens is that I'll go through the steps, and I'll solve the configuration step by step in the recordings. And then when I send you the lab during the week, you can actually configure the same thing. I see a comment from Shadrach. Karatol Study Group. Yeah, that's the Facebook group that we have, right? So that is correct. I think if you're mentioning the Facebook group, Shad, that's the one. And of course, the detailed solution files for the practice labs will be provided, as I was mentioning earlier, and I showed you one of the examples like the MPLS solution file. Uh, Q&A, one thing which is missing in most of the programs, like even if you watch some recordings from other, there are other courses also where you can have the recordings available to you, or you can ask some questions over the email. Maybe they will answer you in a week or something, or you are on your own. So if you are watching something and you get stuck, you are on the mercy of the CCI forums or online discussions, or asking strangers on the internet that, hey, I got stuck here, what do you think, what is the issue? So in this case, you that the Q&A session actually can help you a lot. because in the Q&A session, every Zoom session at the end of the class, we are going to have a short Q&A session where you can ask me some questions. But if you have more detailed questions, like during the week you are doing the lab and you get stuck somewhere and you have some screenshots you want to ask questions, there the Facebook group will be a better place, because you can actually paste all these screenshots and specifically ask, or maybe copy paste the configuration and say, I'm stuck into this part and this particular section of the configuration is not working, and I would like to know the answer for that. So that is something you'll see that Facebook group will be very helpful in that part, right? But of course, we will have a Q&A session into every Zoom session also at the end of the session, right? And we are of course covered the newer technologies also, like SD-WAN and SDA, and programmability and automation. These parts are also properly covered. And after the single protocol labs, we also have a full actual exam like multi-protocol labs as well, right? So that is going to help you a lot. And also one thing that is very interesting and very important is the troubleshooting. Troubleshooting, I always tell students that it depends on your fundamental knowledge. So if you know how things are supposed to work and they are deviating from that, they are not working the way they're supposed to work, then troubleshooting can actually help you a lot into or that fundamental knowledge can help you a lot into troubleshooting steps or understanding how it is done. So we are going to talk about this also every now and then, how exactly we can do the troubleshooting. And that's why you will have my support throughout the course. So anytime you have any questions, confusions, you can definitely ask me and we will fix it and we will move forward, right? That's the overall objective of this class. All right, I see a question from Sheila. Could you please let me know how many of your students have passed the CCI exam? So yeah, I'll have to check exactly the number, but it should be more than 40 to 50 people, because I have been in this Cisco training industry for more than, I would say now 15 years, more than 15, 16 years. And from last actually, not now. It's already almost 18 years. We have started, I think, around 2008 something, when I was started teaching CCNA. But CCIE specifically, I am teaching since 2011, and I got my CCIE routing switching and the CCIE service provider, two CCIs back in 2012 and 2014, and since then I'm teaching mostly the CCIE classes, and there are many students who pass their exam. Some pass in the first attempt. Some actually had to take 2 or 3 attempts, because it also depends on the performance on that particular day, right? Exactly how you take the pressure and configure. Again, the accuracy is the first part, and then comes the speed. So if you go through these particular steps, you're definitely going to have a better chance of passing the exam. And if nobody can guarantee that you will pass the exam in the first attempt or like this, but what people do that when they guarantee is that they are saying, okay, we will give you the actual exam questions, you can go through that. That is not going to help you. What's going to help you is your real uh, struggle and real work that you're putting every single week to understand these technologies, becoming comfortable with all the layer 3, layer 2, layer 3 technologies, VPN technologies, advanced technologies like SD-WAN, SDA, and programmability and automation. That's why this course concentrates on building the fundamental foundational knowledge first, and then mixing everything together, putting everything together and doing the multi-protocol labs, and that is the accuracy part. And then when it comes to speed, the last part, like at the end of the course, I'll give you a particular structure that you should go through this particular way or this structure to make sure that you become faster and faster and you are able to complete the lab within the time. So many times people fail the CCI exam, not because they don't have the correct knowledge, but they don't have the time, the lack of time, because they only get 5 hours to configure things, and they end up actually failing the exam because of the speed part, right? So we are going to make sure that we got that covered as well. I'll give you proper strategies at the end of the course and how exactly you can speed up things to be able to pass the exam. Yeah, Sheila, your question?
Yes.
Yeah,
My question
go
is,
ahead.
since I was looking at the program for CCIE, and there was a
Yes.
list of books. we need to look at regarding that. Will we be given enough time during the course to study them, or you're gonna go through them at the same time?
Which part? Sorry, I couldn't get the question clearly.
Yeah, it's regarding the books. There was like a list of books we need to read. I have a Excel sheet from Cisco.
Right. So yeah,
Down.
those books are recommended if you want the in-depth knowledge of the technologies, right? For those certain technologies, and that's exactly what we are covering here week by week. So you actually don't need to read any books for this program, because we are going to cover everything that we need to cover here. What happens is that sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm really interested into BGP, or I really like this VPN topic. So whatever we are covering here is although enough for the exam, but I would like to get more information, and then you may go and read some extra steps, or more in-depth detail about that particular topic. But for example, let's say if you're starting BGP is such a huge topic, and it is used in service provider networks mainly. So we are not going to cover everything in the BGP that you need, even service provider level as well. Like for example, there are different types of implementations we can do, which are only specific to SP. But as long as the CCIE curriculum is concerned, the enterprise infrastructure curriculum, we are going to cover everything that we need for that exam. So you don't need to read any specific books or anything extra apart from this program. That's why the program is such a long program, because we give enough time to every single technology that we need to go through, right? So we are going to cover everything essential. But of course, if you need some more in-depth knowledge, maybe something even more than what you would need for CCIE, or something different, like for example, think about MPLS. MPLS is a big technology. There are different implementations, right? There is application of L2 VPN, which you actually provide use when you use it as an overlay VPN, compared to L3 VPN, which is the peer-to-peer VPN. So in CCI Enterprise Infrastructure exam, you only have the L3 VPN implementation. You don't have L2 VPN, any transport over MPLS, Atom, or VPLS, virtual private LAN services, because those VPN technologies are L2 VPN technologies, which provides switch-to-switch connectivity, or connectivity or layer 2, which is part of the CCI service provider exam, right? Or service provider structure. So maybe when you are doing MPLS, you become interested into that, or traffic engineering. MPLS traffic engineering is a big topic in service provider, but it's not in CCI enterprise infrastructure. But since you are interested into MPLS, maybe you want to start reading the MPLS fundamentals book, or a certain book where you get a little bit more detail about that. But for particularly passing the CCI exam and getting the enough information to be able to be comfortable with these topics and technologies, you will not need to read any specific book or any specific uh, uh, publication other than this course. This course will be more than sufficient.
Yeah, I have a second question. It's
Sure.
regarding the course, right? After we complete the 52 weeks course, will we
Yeah.
be able to stay in contact with you until we schedule the lab exam, or what is?
Oh yes, yes, absolutely. So the idea is, see, we wanted to create this code so that you get all the information you need, and that is the accuracy part, which is the most important part, of course. But once this program finishes, you have to do some practice. Like we will do, of course, some multi-protocol lab practice at the within the course as well. But everyone is different. Some people just get ready by doing it a couple of times, but some people say I need to practice a little bit more, not to remember everything by heart, but just to have that pace, right? That speed. And we can create a strategy together, and then we can keep in touch. And then whenever you have any questions later, of course, when I say that you can ask me any questions, it's not within the 12 months program. Anytime later also, because you have the lifetime access to recordings, you can ask me any questions in future as well. Or if you need a specific strategy, or you are saying, okay, I have already booked the exam Arpit for the next month. Can you help me to prepare like a plan to make sure that I maximize my practicing, and before I go to the exam? Definitely, you can contact me, and I will be more than happy to help you there.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. So yeah, this is another thing, that anytime if there is any change into the exam, or if they are going to add something to the exam, we are going to add it to the program as well. So, sometimes what happens, life happens and you get busy in your life, in your job, and you don't get to take the exam for some time. Maybe it's already a couple of years since you took this course, and now you want to go back, uh, and you are watching the recordings because you have lifetime access. You will see that even if the program has changed, or if CCI has added something, or Cisco has added something to the program, we are going to make sure that we add it to our program as well. And since you will have the lifetime access to the recordings, you will have the access to those new topics as well, right? That is another unique things about this program. So in the email, I already mentioned that we are using a tool which is called EVNG. So the OVA that I sent you, the link for the OVA, when you download it, you need to install it on VMware. You need to import it into the VMware. So we'll see that the program, or the software that we use, is called EVNG. It's an emulator. So it's not a simulator, it's an emulator. The difference is, in simulator, you simulate the real device. So you are just acting like the real device, but actually it is just a software which is programmed to respond similar way like the real device does. But because it is a software, not the actual device, it doesn't support all the features. As opposed to an emulator, which is basically just the front shell, and in the backend you are actually using the real operating system of the routers or switches or SD-WAN devices, for example. So what happens is that you use the real operating system, and then in the front end, instead of a hardware, you just have a virtual machine. That's the only difference. That's why these support almost all the features or technologies that the real device would support, right? Except very rare few things which are hardware specific. So the EVNG is just software. You will see you can download it for free from evng.net. But this software actually then require you to somehow procure the iOS images, operating system images for routers and switches from somewhere. And then you need to copy it into the Linux backend. So you have a Ubuntu operating system in the backend, or CentOS, depending on which EVNG you're using. You copy it into that Linux backend system, these operating system images somehow, and then you need to license them. And after they are properly licensed, then you can open the browser, and then you will be able to add these routers, switches, or devices, and you can start creating a topology. So you will have to think about what topology can we create to practice MPLS versus QoS versus multicasting versus BGP or OSP for EIGRP or SD-WAN. So you have to start thinking about different topologies. So if you do it on your own, of course you can do it. But we wanted to get rid of all these issues. We wanted to make sure that you can concentrate on the important stuff, which is the CCI topics, right from the day one. So that's why we compiled everything into a file which we call the OVA file. And this OVA file actually contains the EVNG, which already has all the operating system images, and they are already licensed. And we already have created some topologies so that we can start using these pre-created topologies, pre-configured topologies to start configuring the topics that we need to configure. So there are layer 2 topologies, and there are layer 3 topologies, and there are, of course, multi-protocol lab topologies. They're all added to the EVNG. So when you import this OVA into the VMware, you will already have everything set up for you, and you can start practicing right from the day one, right? So you don't need to waste time into trying to set up your own thing using this, and you're doing it on your own machine. So you still have your own thing. Like, you are not dependent on other students, or you are not dependent on us to requesting the rack time or telling us what time can I access my devices. It's on your device, right? It's an OVA file. You set it up on your VMware, on your laptop or desktop. So you are free to do how much practice you want to do, when you want to do the practice. And that's the another very, very useful thing about this particular program, right? So as I mentioned, topologies are already set in EVNG, and the lab file that I'll send you along with the solution, that you will be able to practice it on the EVNG EVNG software. That's why during the off days in a week where we don't have the live Zoom session, we are encouraged to do the labs again and again, as many times as you can. And feel free to contact me if you have any specific questions, right? So more specifically, if you talk about the EVNG, you will see that the OVA file I sent you, when you import it, let me show you here. So the OVA file that I sent you, you can actually import it into the EVNG, into the VMware. So which VMware can you use? So you can use any VMware. You can use VMware Pro as well, or VMware Workstation Player, which is the free version. And in case, because there is a organization Broadcom which has purchased the VMware or taken over VMware organization, so the website has changed. So sometimes it's not very easy to find where exactly is the VMware player on the website. It's a nightmare right now. They are restructuring everything. So if you have any issues, you can definitely download the VMware Workstation Player from our Dropbox link, which I sent you into the welcome email as well, right? So once you have the VMware set installed and OVA file downloaded, you can go to the player and file, and then you can open it. And then once you import it, you will actually see that it will come. You can give it a name like 0 to lab, and then you can click on it and boot it. And when you boot this, it will actually boot to the Linux backend system. I'll show you right now here. Just a second. Yeah. So this is the screen it will actually leave you at. Few things which are important here, that if you don't see an IP address, so you have to see an IP address like this, and then you will see the login screen. If you don't see an IP address here, the reason might be that you did not select the correct network adapter. So you have to select the NAT into the settings. You need to go to the manage and virtual machine setting while the system is shut down. Here you can actually adjust the RAM, how much RAM you want to give it, and the network adapter has to be NAT or network address translation. Then you reboot it, and then you will see an IP address will be shown here. So, few things here you can see that how much RAM do you need in EVNG. So for the single protocol labs that we are going to do in the first session of this course, 8 gig RAM will be more than enough. But when it comes to SD-WAN practicals, recommended RAM would be 16 to 32 gig. And of course, CCIE is a big commitment, right? You are going to give your 1 year preparation to this, and you want to make sure that you become comfortable with all the technologies. So to make sure that you invest a little bit into maybe like a second-hand CPU or something from eBay or Amazon, they are very cheap. You don't need anything with the graphics card. You don't need anything with the very high-end CPU. Even the 6th, 7th generation CPU is okay. What is more important is the RAM. We need more RAM for the VMware. So anything with 32 to 64 gig RAM will actually go a long way in your practices. But if you have a laptop with 16 gig of RAM, that will also be okay. You will be able to do all the practicals that we need to do for this class, right? So yeah, I was saying that you need to make sure that you select the memory according to how much RAM you have, and the network adapter has to be set to NAT. And when you do that, you see something like this. You see an IP address here that you need to open into a browser. So you don't need to log into that backend uh, Linux machine. You need to log in here. You open the IP into the browser, and the username password here is admin and EU, right? Yeah, Shad, you have a question?
Yes. In my situation, because I set it on the NB side of it, do I have to? I can use the same one, right?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you clearly.
Like in my situation, remember I just said I set the same configuration for the Encore. Do I have
Right.
to? Do I have to set a different one for?
Yes, yeah. So you will have a separate OVA because the topologies are completely different, right? So
Okay.
the OVA that you imported for Encore, that's a completely different one from this one. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
sure.
All right.
No problem. Thanks. So once you log into this GUI, you have to click on sign in with admin and EU, and you will actually end up on this particular screen. You will not see all these so many topologies because I was just playing around and there are many things, but few of these topologies you will see there. For example, you will have this base lab, which is going to be our topology for most of the routing practicals. And then we have different switching topologies depending on what we are doing: span R, span, STP, span T protocol, or multiple span T protocol, MAC address configuration, or CDP, Ether channel. We have different topologies for these things. And also, when it comes to multi-protocol lab, we have the complete multi-protocol topology as well. You can see. data center, headquarter, service provider network, and the branches. And you only see branch 3 and branch 4 here because we have a dedicated separate OVA for SD WAN part. And that is something we will do into the second part of the course, where I'll send you another OVA later when we come to that part, SD WAN and the programmability part, right? So just to give you an example that these are the different topologies you will have. So let's say today we are doing a spanning tree, and I ask you to use a spanning tree lab 1 topology. When you go there, you will see that we have a topology where we have 4 routers here, sorry, 4 switches, and they are connected with 2 links each. You need to boot them, and you need to connect to them before we can start configuring the lab that I will send you with the instructions what exactly needs to be done, right? Just to give you an example. And when you go to the 0to-IT.com, where you have your access to the 0 to Lab recordings, you will see that in the first week, you have a video which is called the EVNG introduction. I would recommend you to watch that video so that you can get exact information what you need to do with EVNG and how do you boot the devices, how do you save the configuration, how do you access the devices, everything you will be able to see in that video, right? So it can be very useful. All right, so what exactly is expected from your side in this course? So you can see that in CCIE, you need to have a consistent preparation week by week. You need to solidify your understanding. You need to keep on showing up and doing the work. So from your side, just show up, do the labs, and ask the questions, right? So overall, be consistent with your preparation. Don't take long breaks because then again it becomes harder to come back. If you take longer breaks, you think, okay, I already have always have the access to the recordings. I can go back to the recordings. Yes, although that might be true, and it's a long course, so some if you had to cancel some time here or there, if you have to take some breaks, that's fine. But longer breaks or completely stopping for a few months is not a good idea if you want to always have that flow, right? So these are the only things needed from your side. Everything else we will make sure that we cover for you, and we go through all the things that we need to go. A little bit about myself. My name is Arpit Pandit, and I have more than 18 years of network training experience. And I have trained Microsoft services, including the infrastructural and directory services. I have also taught Juniper and Linux cloud AWS configurations, but my main expertise is in Cisco, where I have my CCNA, CCNP, and CCIE certifications, CCIE in routing and switching, and service provider. So out of these 18 years, actually more than 13 years now, actually, of the CCIE training experience itself, where I did teach CCIE routing and switching, which used to be called before an enterprise infrastructure now, and also CCIE service provider. I myself have 2 CCIs, routing, switching, and service provider. What happened is that when I was doing routing and switching CCI preparation, of course, there was MPLS L3 UPN into the CCI exam, and I got very fascinated with that. I said, I really love this technology. I want to know more about MPS. Where can I get more information? And that's where I found out that if I do CCI service provider, it's purely MPLS. Everything is on MPLS, and that's why I went for the SP as the next certification. And I also, time to time, provide consultation to different organizations. Some service providers also take my consultation. So I always keep an eye on the latest technologies, latest solutions that they are using. What exactly are the customer onboarding techniques they are using now? What kind of issues customers are having? And I try to include some of this information into the trainings as well, so that we can understand how exactly the flow is working in the real life, right? So yeah, that's it from my side today. I just wanted to introduce you the course, and then of course we are going to go through the steps and all the configuration starting from next week. So if you haven't set up your OVI, don't worry, you do have some time. You have this whole week where you can actually fix everything, and then of course the actual content will start from the next week. So let's get started. Thank you so much, guys.